Michael Rockefeller had lived nothing but a life of luxury that was afforded to him thanks to his great-grandfather, John D Rockefeller. Michael never needed nor wanted for anything, and after completing his education at the Buckley School in New York, he moved on to the prestigious Harvard University. Here, Michael continued to flourish and come into his own. He slowly began to discover who he was and what he liked, but it wouldn't be until after he graduated from Harvard that he'd find his real passion, anthropology. His degree from Harvard meant that he could have done anything he wanted, and Michael chose to spend his time studying the Asmat people of New Guinea, which at the time was called Dutch New Guinea. Michael's father had recently opened a museum in New York, displaying the artifacts and artworks of indigenous people across the world, and this caught Michael's attention. At the time, the museum and its contents were called primitive art, a term that refers to artworks from various time periods from non-Western societies. Michael took a strong liking to these exhibits and wanted more to life than just sitting behind a desk and making decisions. So he decided that he would follow in his father's footsteps and bring back to New York more artifacts from indigenous peoples. Using his strong connections and time at Harvard, Michael connected with Carl Hyder, who had obtained his anthropology degree from Harvard, and the two set about looking for their next project. After talking to various experts and people in the business, Michael and Carl settled on Dutch New Guinea and its indigenous Asmat people. Dutch colonists had already made headway in the country, but Michael knew that the people of the US had likely never heard of the Asmat people and wanted to study their way of life. In the early 1960s, Michael, Carl, and a team of researchers jumped aboard a ship and set sail for Dutch New Guinea. The Asmat people were not pleased with the outside intervention, especially in the village of Ajjanep. Those living there had lived a quiet existence with little interference from the outside world and preferred to keep it that way. Whilst the Asmat people allowed Michael and his group to take photos, they refused to sell or hand over any of their artifacts, as they held significant cultural and religious meanings to them. Michael disregarded their wishes and believed that he could convince the Asmat people to hand over their items. This was, of course, despite the fact that these items held and still hold significance for them. The trip slowly wound to an end, and Michael was more enthusiastic than ever to return to collect more artifacts and items for his exhibit, despite the fact that the Asmat people didn't want to hand them over. It has also been said that the Asmat people merely tolerated Michael and his group, and that there were feelings of disdain and resentment that will come to play into this later. No one in the group recognized the Asmat people's autonomy, instead treating them like an object to be gawked at, and their religious and cultural items nothing more than props for a show. Unfortunately, Dutch New Guinea was still colonized at this time, and the Asmat people had little to no say in what happened to them. But this doesn't mean that they went down quiet or without a fight. On November 19th, 1961, Michael and his group set sail once again for Dutch New Guinea, this time hoping that they would be able to convince the Asmat people to part with their items and artifacts. But just as the boats were about to reach the shore, tragedy struck. All of a sudden, the boats were struck by currents and waves, sending everyone overboard as the boat capsized. The group were in a panic, desperately trying to get their boats back upright, and trying not to drown in the process. Whilst this event may have been a deterrent for anyone else, Michael decided that a simple boat capsizing was not going to ruin his trip. As everyone else scrambled for their boats, Michael shouted over, "I think I can make it," leaping off and into the water and starting the 12-mile swim for the shore. Everyone around him was incredibly concerned, but with the boats bobbing up and down around them, there's little they could do. The group watched on as Michael swam into the blue waters, not knowing that this would be the last time they would ever see him. The rest of the group managed to clamber into their boats and headed for the nearest safe haven. They immediately notified Michael's family and Dutch authorities of Michael's disappearance. The Dutch and US authorities were very keen to start the search and rescue effort for Michael, thanks to his social standing and family name. Within hours, helicopters, boats, and ships were scouring the waters looking for any sign of Michael. For 9 long days, search and rescue crews combed through the waters, hoping to find a worn out but alive Michael clinging to life. But such a discovery never came. After 9 days, the search was officially called off, with the Dutch Interior Minister telling the press there is no longer any hope of finding Michael Rockefeller alive. His parents and family were devastated at their loss, and shortly after his disappearance made the headlines, the rumor mills began to turn. Over the years, there have been many rumors and theories as to what happened to Michael, and the most prevalent is that the Asmat people ate him once he reached the shores of Oceanip. The Asmat people were known to engage in cannibalism, especially when in battle. An article by Pulse Nigeria writes, besides the fact that the Asmat were headhunters, they also hunted for names. They believed that when they killed a man and ate him, they would take his power and become him. The Asmat people were also known to worship the skulls of family members who had passed, sealing their eyes and nasal passages to ensure that evil spirits could not enter or exit. This information alone sent everyone into a tailspin, and it is widely believed that Michael Rockefeller fell victim to such a fate. The attitude towards the indigenous tribes at the time certainly didn't help, and only fueled the rumors and misconception that these people were savages. This angle certainly makes for a sensational story. However, there's no physical proof to suggest that the Asmat people cannibalized Michael Rockefeller. Many years later, a skull was presented to authorities that was touted as belonging to Michael Rockefeller. However, no testing was conducted, and there is no forensic proof that the skull belongs to Michael. In 2014, author Carl Hoffman decided to reinvestigate Michael's case. During his visit to Papua New Guinea, Carl and his translators overheard a conversation between 2 people, with one of them telling the other to never mention the American man who was murdered on the island. According to Carl, the people in Oceanip had believed that Michael was a crocodile and hadn't recognized him until he got much closer to the land. Unfortunately, by that time, it was too late and their minds had already been made up. Michael was targeted in response to an incident that had happened years earlier, where Dutch authorities had attacked the Asmat people in Oceanip, killing 4 men. According to sources, this incident had happened due to a communication error, and the Dutch government was allegedly trying to intervene and prevent the different groups of the island from going to war with each other. The Asmat people in Oceanip did not take well to this, and believed that they had to seek retribution for what happened to them at the hands of white Dutch people. As a result, Michael became the target. According to Carl, no one was willing to discuss the specifics of the situation with him through fear of punishment. A few of his conversations and his time spent in Oceanip have been captured on film, but still, nobody has been able to present any solid physical evidence to suggest that Michael Rockefeller was cannibalized. The official cause of death for Michael Rockefeller was listed as drowning when he was declared deceased in absence in 1964. Other experts believe that Michael could have died due to exposure, exhaustion, or was perhaps eaten by an animal in the waters. There's a lot of sensationalism around the story of Michael Rockefeller, but for now, the truth remains just out of our reach. That is it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. This will help my channel grow. If you have a future story suggestion or would like to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at creepyunsolvedmedia@gmail.com. Looking for more content? Be sure to visit creepyunsolved.com, where you'll find podcast episodes, YouTube videos, and the Creepy Unsolved blog. Until next time, this is Dylan signing off. I look forward to your comments below.